Guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, Neighbors Trespass and Sneak into My Pool to Do Adult Things. I Get Them Arrested. TLDR. I build a pool in my backyard so I can enjoy swimming when it is nice out. One day power goes out at work, and I go home early to find that neighbor and his wife are in my pool naked having intercourse. They memorized my schedule and thought they could do it and get back home before I would have even noticed. I build a fence, set up cameras, and caught them again. After that final warning they did it again and I called the police who found them naked in my pool and arrested them for trespassing. They hate me now, but at least they're staying off of my property and out of my pool. I had always grown up wanting to have a pool in my backyard, so when it was finally time for me to buy my own home I wanted to make sure I lived in an area where I would be allowed to have on. It wasn't anything super fancy, but I really liked having it, especially in the summer when it was hot out and I didn't feel like driving around looking for a public pool. Having my own was just easier and I could even invite my friends over and have pool parties. Of course, having something like this caused me to know that eventually I was going to have trouble, I just didn't know when and how bad it would be. I had read stories of neighbor kids sneaking into pools and such, so I thought that might have been an issue, but it never was. I didn't even have a real fence around my property, just a gate that honestly anyone could reach other and unlock. Then neighbors happened and to this day I have no idea how long this had been going on. I am on a kind of very set schedule, so someone living near me usually knows when I leave and when I come back. My guess is that once neighbors knew my schedule they were going to take full advantage of my pool and then get back to their house before I got home and could notice. The only issue was one day in the summer it was so hot that the mass amounts of air conditioning being used shorted out the whole power grid and my office lost power. There was no way to do any work because of this, so we were just all sent home early to suffer the heat in our own houses. Of course, for me this was a great opportunity to take a nice cooling dip in my pool. I pulled into the driveway, went into my house, changed into my trunks, and went out my back door only to see my neighbors in my pool kissing each other. I was beyond angry and was going to let the two of them have it, despite me being usually level-headed. Me. What the hell are you doing in my pool? Neighbor. Oh you usually aren't home this early. I thought with the heat it would be alright for us to take a dip. Me. You can't just go onto my property without so much as asking and use the excuse that you didn't think I would catch you. Get out right now and get off of my property. It wasn't until they got out of the pool that I could see both of them were totally naked and trying their best to cover up in front of me. I was both shocked and angry because it doesn't take a genius to figure out what the two of them were doing in there. Me. You didn't even wear a swimsuit to take a dip. Neighbor. Well, you know we have always wanted to try. In a pool, and since it was so hot today. Me. Just stop talking and get out of my yard now. I obviously didn't feel like going in the pool after knowing what they did and realized that I sadly needed to up my security a little bit. I got a real fence around my property and replaced the gate with one that you can't just reach over and open. Since my schedule is still set, though, I wanted a little extra protection and got a single camera facing my backyard so I could keep an eye out of them. I guess they didn't think it was such a big deal because it didn't take long for the two of them to get over the fence and start having intercourse in my pool again, this time not knowing that they were on video. I warned them again and told them that I was sending the evidence into the police if they ever came onto my property again. Now I am a pretty nice guy, so I can admit that I understand someone thinking that I am all talk and no action since I haven't called the police on them already. They must have thought the same thing because of course they came back again. This time neighbor tried to throw a towel over the camera to block it from watching them, which didn't make much sense because by doing that he was still clearly on film being on my property and now messing with my camera. I guess he didn't want me seeing them naked again, even though I have now seen it twice. I stepped away from my desk and made a call to the police saying that my camera saw two people trespass onto my property and cover up the camera. I decided to not tell them what I assumed the couple were doing and instead just wait till later to give them the video they wanted it. I know some of you wish I could have been there to tell the story of what it was like for the officers to find the two of them in my pool. Trust me, I would have too, but it is a long drive, and I didn't want to lose paid hours over those two idiots. I will say though that the police did catch them in the act as they were giving me a report later of what happened on the scene. The towel got taken off the camera very late into the police being there, so I didn't even get to see them getting arrested through that. I did offer them the old footage to show that they had done this before, and they took it but said they might not need it at the end of the day. They did get arrested for trespassing, but I don't think being naked got them any extra charges because they weren't on public property, they were on my private property. Considering how embarrassed they were that I saw them naked, I'm sure a bunch of police officers seeing them naked and anyone outside seeing them get arrested must have been mortifying. Since the matter was between them and the police, though I never found out exactly what kind of punishment they got for it. My guess would be some kind of fine because they didn't end up going to jail. They were back home pretty much the next day, but I think if they trespassed and got arrested for it again they would have been in bigger trouble. Every time I had the misfortune of making eye contact with them they would sneer at me like I was the one that did something wrong. Meanwhile I just still can't get over how little shame someone must have to get naked and go into your neighbor's pool to have intercourse with your wife. Finally, I just want to let everyone know that because I was so skeeved out by this I had the pool drained, cleaned, and refilled. I know that with the chlorine there probably wasn't anything too bad in there, but it was more of a mental thing. At the end of it all I got my pool back, and according to my camera the only other living things that get anywhere near it besides me are the occasional bird or squirrel that want to investigate it. I think the fence and camera are still going to stay up for a while because neighbor basically broke any trust I have with everybody in the neighborhood. I hope that they learned their lesson, and if they ever trespass again they get arrested and go to jail that time. I just wish the images that I have seen of those two could be bleached out of my mind. The next story is titled, "My uncle is actually disabled." Okay, this isn't much of a revenge, but actually just notifying the police. My uncle, who is 45, has a metal knee and severe back problems. He also now has nerve damage. He has disabled license plates so he can park in the handicap zone. He just recently moved to a place in town people call townhouses because all the houses are apartments, all spaces out in a park kind of area with a parking lot on the inside. My uncle got lucky, especially because he had a kid just about a year before moving, his first kid, and just lost his mother to cancer, so he had a lot of mixed feelings about moving. But what made it worse was this horrible neighbor, let's call them HP. So HP decided to tell me uncle parking spaces can't be claimed even if they are handicapped. She did have the thing to hang up in the window, but he told her that he literally lived right next to the space and if helps with his knee. She decided to ignore him and park there anyways. He didn't really care even though it hurt him in the long run. So as a great nephew who knows this city like the back of his hand and mostly everyone, it's a small city, 15,000 people. I decided to learn a little more about this HP. I found out she didn't own the disabled parking hanger her mother did, who lived across town. So point one for me to being able to stop her, but nope, didn't work. We called the cops and said she uses it only for when her mother visits, which is BS. I never seen her mother visit. Her mother is an old teacher of mine. So next plan, figure out why she wants to do it. That took a couple of days, but talking to some of friends who lived in that area told me plows go through there when it snows. That means everyone has to move their cars to the street except handicapped parking. So now I know. Me and my uncle decided to put more of a plan together. We timed her movements and I did my usually mathematical algorithms to figure out that on an average day she will leave between 5 a.m. to 2 p.m, probably work, daycare, blah blah. But what is interesting is weekends she leaves for a straight 10 hours, leaving her kids home alone because she doesn't have a husband or even a boyfriend, so two kids, seen them playing, both probably around 6 or 8 years old. So I told my uncle the best times to park there so she wouldn't even be able to, and as soon as she comes home she wouldn't have her spot. A week later, though, she messed with the wrong person. My uncle didn't really wanted kids till he met his now wife. He is so loving of kids, and me being his oldest nephew knows that my life wasn't the great. So when he pulled into the parking lot to see this kid at noon in the middle of winter sitting in the handicapped space, he freaked out. He got out and asked, "Where is your mother?" And he said, "She left and told me to sit her till she got back." So he told him to go inside and warm up and don't worry about saving that space. Now my uncle is mad. He waited till she got back, scrolled this young HP for leaving a child out. Only she could say was, "You're not a parent." He is, and she didn't know it, that he knows what it takes to get a kid taken away. Boom, and then she lost her kids just because she didn't want to move to a space right next to his because she is too lazy. My uncle gets that spot and now it's actually his because he just had learned his back is going to need surgery. The last story is titled, Lot Inquiry Uncovered a HOA from Hell. Edit. My realtor gave me an outdated covenant that was overturned and heavily revised a few years ago, and I got a copy of the updated one. The vast majority of the head-ass terms in the original covenant were nullified, and replaced with far more reasonable requests. There is also no longer a HOA, and property owners no longer owe dues every month that go to a HOA or Development Administration Board. But since that original restrictive covenant was so horrible and authoritarian, I'll keep this post up to continue to haunt people. So the other day my parents and I were looking at this really pretty lot in a seemingly abandoned estates project. Because the lot was relatively cheap, the owners turned out to be dramatically overpricing it actually, but anyway. The roads and utility stubs were completed in 2005, but hardly anyone has been building on those lots since then. The streets below the street all these vacant lots are on has been somewhat developed, but that's about it. The lots turned into unimproved parcels with significantly overgrown vegetation. When sales do occur, they usually appear to reflect land investments and land flipping. That was the first red flag that something was very wrong. When the realtor sent us a copy of the covenant, we immediately realized what was wrong. It was a nightmarish HOA. Here are some examples for how abusive this HOA covenant was. Aesthetics. 1. Very strict landscaping practices in place. HOA board can enforce these expectations in any way they see fit, and can encroach on your property to replace everything down to the smallest herbaceous plant if they don't like it. 2. You're only allowed to consult one specific architect and one specific contracting company to build on your lot. There is also an architectural board you need to consult for all exterior and interior design choices, and you must consult them every time you wish to make extensive changes to decor and aesthetics. 3. Every time you submit a proposal for any change to the architectural board, you'll need to pay a fee. Even if the board rejects your proposals multiple times. They can also assign more fees to you depending on the complexity of your proposed changes. These fees do not include the reimbursements you must provide to the architects for using their time. 4. You can only choose between 3 colors and the house must look pretty similar to the other houses in the area. Pet rules. 1. You're not allowed to let your pets out in your own backyard. They must be kept indoors at all times. Fido cannot simply take a wee on your own parcel of land. Dog kennels are prohibited. 2. On the weird pet restrictions, one part of the development will only allow you to have 3 pets, of any size and shape, while another portion only allows you to have 1 pet. Invasion of privacy much? 1. You have to agree to an easement allowing any member of the estate community, and the estate administration, aka HOA board by another name, to have access your front lawn. The HOA administration may replace vegetation and decorations on your front lawn as they see fit, and will appoint persons to maintain your front lawn whenever they wish. They can also barge in on and maintain and assign fees for your backyard if it's not up to their standards. There are very strict landscaping practices in place as well. 2. You're strongly discouraged from putting blinds, shutters, or curtains on your windows. If you do, they must meet pre-approved color schemes. So basically the community and the HOA board needs full visibility of your naked grandma every day. 3. The common area gets uncomfortably close to or essentially overlaps a lot of people's backyards, so don't expect much privacy back there. The backyards are also typically very tiny thanks to building dimension requirements and setback rules. The common area. 1. It's entirely unlandscaped and undeveloped and exists as vacant land, but you are still required to pay fees and any number of extra assessments for its existence and maintenance. Funny enough, the HOA board is under no obligations to maintain the common area, but they still require dues for it. 2. HOA board can bite off and take pieces of your own land away for recreational amenities or utilities for the common area if they so please. At the very least, they can establish vehicle easements through your yard to get to whatever it needs in the common area. 3. Next to the lot my family was looking at is a crude dirt road people have used to access the very narrow strip of land behind the lot. We thought it was just a way of designating a boundary, but it's a road with an easement to the very narrow area, with no utilities, that essentially comprises that lot's backyard. 4. HOA board can regulate how many people use the common area, who uses it, and for what length of time someone uses it on any given day. Fees and finances. 1. HOA administration can assign fees for any expenses they incur in managing the common area, your property, and possibly the property of others in the estates. You could be charged for maintenance of or certain forms of construction on other people's lots. Someone's house burns down or gets damaged by natural disasters. HOA doesn't like someone's tree they planted and needs to replace it, or needs to paint someone's front bench a different color. You're expected to pay fees that would, in theory, ultimately fund these occurrences. 2. There are 4 different kinds of fees homeowners will be charged each month, assuming they make no overt changes to their property. A general fee, a maintenance fee, a capital fee, and a reconstruction fee. These types of fees all go to different cash reserves for the HOA. 3. The language in the funds also seems to establish that the HOA administration can use the fee reserves for other, arbitrary purposes. Shady, shady, shady. 4. They will issue liens against you for any and all personal charges or mistakes you incur on your own property. 5. If your house burns down or gets substantially damaged by factors outside of your control, you are financially responsible for rebuilding it and completely restoring it to its former character. Apparently the HOA can collect fees that are designated to help people in this situation, but they are actually under no obligation to spend those designated funds in helping you if shit hits the fan. Other abusive rules. 1. Visitors cannot park at the front of your house for more than 2 hours, no exceptions. Forget having social gatherings on your own property. 2. Usually a buyer only gets 1 vote in the HOA board for every lot they own. However, they're different classes of voters, and there's a small class of interest groups who own 1 or more lots who get 4 votes or more per lot they own. I don't have any information about who these people are. Thank you for listening.